Every weapon is a story, every enchantment a worldview. You're not building a loadout, you're choosing what kind of history you want to carry. The expansive lore of the Elder Scrolls is unlike anything else in gaming. Hell, even in pop culture, it's only rivaled by tabletop games like D&D and Warhammer. But in the realm of video game IP, the oceanic depth of Elder Scrolls lore is staggering to behold. One might question what the point of so much backstory is, and how it could have a detrimental effect on the narrative of the game. For example, if the characters of the world use too many fantasy nouns, then the player might be confused as to what they're referring to, as our character in the game will be expected to already know what that is. And while there's certainly an element of truth to that when you first start exploring Tamriel, there's a gameplay benefit to having such labyrinthine lore. Only a few of us in the Elder Scrolls optimize our builds by equipping full matching armor sets that matches with the mythology of our chosen race. Many of us will simply equip the gear that has the best stats that fit our preferred playstyle with little thought for narrative significance. But in doing so, we create our own collection of legendary gear that represents a different part of history or tribe in Tamriel, which is a storytelling method only possible because of the literal encyclopedias of background information. One of the Elder Scrolls' deliberate and recurring themes is racism and segregation, which plays a heavy role in nearly every region depicted in the series so far. In Morrowind, the Dunmer enslaved the Khajiit and the Argonians and are referred to with racial slurs. In Skyrim, the Nords are xenophobic nationalists who fight for Skyrim's independence while at the same time discriminating against foreign races. The Thalmor are about as close as Nazi parallels can get in a fantasy setting, and if the player is Argonian or Khajiit, then guards may discriminate against you regardless of your behaviour. These multiple prejudices are the reason why this gameplay style of mixing and matching unique gear is a strong storytelling method in the Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls doesn't have bad endings per se. Sure, you can do unbelievably evil things, but at the end of the day, you're still the hero that saves the world rather than destroys it. So with your character locked into being a heroic figure, they're destined to pass into legend from their deeds, and the gear they use would play a massive part in that legend. For example, if the champion of Cyrodiil used an orcish warhammer to pulverize the Daedra forces while clad in the Knights of the Nine armor, that tells the story of a hero that used the best of two opposing races in order to save the realm and create a gameplay-driven story that the player can write themselves. You, as the protagonist of an Elder Scrolls game, are a walking symbol of how the different warring factions of Tamriel create the gear that the most unstoppable people to ever walk the earth use to save it. This is what makes you as a player such a unique creature in the world of Elder Scrolls. Within the universe, you would never see an Argonian use Nordic weaponry due to the oppression they faced from them. But you as a player have no experience as an Argonian or any race within the world, so you can choose to play as any race that you wish without any of the prejudice that comes with that race. Where people often criticize Bethesda's faction questlines for always making the player the head of every faction and the most influential person in the land, I see it as your character becoming the ultimate unifier of the land, where all the factions and guilds unite under the banner of one leader that doesn't discriminate between their followers. Every land we conquer in Tamriel is another land that's freed from racial prejudice as we align every faction under our banner and make it a place of racial equality. Where the strongest champion of the region uses gear that incorporates the mythology and culture of countless races who didn't care where that equipment came from. They're just a stranger that has no loyalty to tradition and will use the technology of every race, showing that only by using the best equipment that each race has to offer can you achieve a legendary strength. And none of that is possible without the endless amounts of history and lore put into this vast universe, where every item has an origin and story behind it. Sure, Dark Souls also has every item come equipped with a backstory, but their makers have already passed on. There will be no stories told of the chosen undead, because there's no one left to tell them. Besides, everyone just uses Zweihander, so what's the point in having all these other weapons? But Elder Scrolls is a living, breathing world where our stories become their myth. So if the world is deep enough to allow for such a legendary figure to use the strengths of every culture, Why shouldn't they combine their loadouts and become a hero that the children of all races can celebrate? For more Bethesda essays, here's one about the Crimson Fleet from Starfield, and I'll be back in 2 days.